Chill here with Sirius Taurus Moon, Mercury retrograde conjoining Sun right now. Midheaven 29 degrees Aquarius, Ascendant 17 degrees Gemini. Well, Moon 2 degrees Scorpio, Venus Neptune conjoining. Venus hour. So I'm doing the second episode around. We're in the previous episode that I hope that that episode was saved. Because when tending to missing people with Mercury aspects, then an episode can go missing. Basically, this is a chart of Arad, who went missing, um, I think, I don't know if I remember how many years ago. And I'm trying not to look at too many details. I definitely pointed to, um, so that I can align with my own perception. Um, he was a navigator in the Israeli aviation, and I definitely predicted that he would have good intuitive abilities to navigate the mystery. Of course, Jupiter is also aviation. Um, I talked about the fact that without ritual abuse, it would be impossible to kidnap him because he was so intuitive. And and basically, ritual abuse is rape and torture without ability to let a person out, and they could be dissociated, but without ability to actually let them out, and making them susceptible to mind control. And that was probably some sort of a nervous system hack. He had Pluto conjoining Regulus, which means that royal powers were operating. Chiron 22 in Aquarius, a wound around some sort of scientific nervous system or destructive or nervous system hacking assassination. Saturn ruled by the Jupiter, Mula Nakshatra, around the galactic center, which tells me that it was a wound around the structure of a global relief organization. Could even be a one world government that has a little bit of a decentralized. Jupiter around Spica is around the Senate of Israel. Jupiter conjoining Rahu and Neptune in Scorpio. So, would be impossible to kidnap such intuitive person without him being in perpetual trauma. Not enough to hack his nervous system, would need to be in perpetual trauma. And this was a very focused person, aviation. So, um, combat aviation, superhuman qualities, Nibelungen, Nibelungen for aviation. um, and unfortunately, the plausibility of ritual abuse and dissociation and nervous system hack is very intense. And this is because people in that global organization want to be in control of everyone, and that just makes them go missing. It could have been able to predict where is oil and gas, particularly around open seas, with Mars fallout, which means oceans. I don't think it means the Middle East, the Mediterranean, and that could have been the reason that he was kidnapped. I was talking about Hezbollah in the previous episode. I don't know if Hezbollah were active, but I think this is way more than that. And this can be something like an MK Ultra, an MK Ultra. Um, he can be retrieved. I don't know. I'm not gonna make the. I'm not gonna try to predict whether living or dead, because when we don't know, then I'm not going to divine on whether somebody is dead or alive, in that sense, because they are trying to find any way and to retrieve. I believe they will find and retrieve. To prevent kidnapping such as one Arad, we would need to abolish extortion cults. And I'm going to immensely elaborate on his Neptune and um, and and what created the kidnapping. Um, hey, by the way, he has Chiron 22 in my 12th house, which is why it took me so much delay to look at the Ron Arad case. Things in my 12th can take time because it's like a hidden spot. But once I do notice that, then more and more things begin to unfold. Okay, I knew it. So, 2016, they believed that he was uh, not alive, or that he was no longer alive in the first years after him going missing, but they didn't know for sure. Recently, they assumed that he escaped during May 1988. And yes, he was rebellious, and he may have escaped the people that were kidnapping him. Um, People predicted he may have killed trying to escape. And then they were looking for basically remaining of body at around the area where he was held hostage in 1986 until 4 or 5th May 1988. That would mean he would be 2 years in prison, in kidnapping. Um, like I said, he was an excellent navigator and a rebellious person. So how did they even get to kidnap? Because he was a pilot. He was a navigator. Navigators, pilot, co-pilot. So navigator has to be co-pilot, which means he would be trained probably as both. I don't know how it works in military, but in aviation I know it works as both. And he went missing. He was considered missing in May 1988. So 1988. He was born in 1958. That would be 30 years. Would have been Saturn return. Why 2 years? Probably a cycle of Mars. Yes, this is exactly a cycle of Mars or Venus. Um, the organization was named Amal, Hope, She, Islamic, and they were operating around the civil war in Lebanon, and they were working with Iran after 1979. Did they evolve into Hezbollah? Oh, they wanted to unite with the Christians, but Hezbollah, I don't know about Hezbollah. They were competing with Hezbollah, but now they are allies. Um, Again, there is a noble energy company of oil and oil gas on the border with Lebanon, with maritime borders, and this may necessitate a deal. Hezbollah probably wants dividends in that deal for information. If they have actual information from Amal, this would present a very, very challenging story for Lebanon, because the finding of Foreign Arad is one of those kind of mythical, epical, or peak events in the orchestration of. I know I'm being very cynical, but we have to understand that where billions are being killed, tortured, and so on and so forth, um, then this is to market the topic of finding Ron Arad. They would need a lot, and it would need to be seen as a pride, kind of like an Israeli pride, Israeli intelligence pride. They would still have to explain how come we were 1988, we're in 2020. 6, um, which is almost 40 years. Um, it would probably be Rahu return too, and it will probably be his Rahu return. We had already eclipses on Aquarius. Definitely with Neptune, we think of Neptune as denoting cold cases and so on and so forth. We have to understand that this is not the case, and this is what this episode is about. Neptune Scorpio. Neptune Scorpio rules oil, Neptune rules divination, Scorpio rules sex, Neptune rules mafia and mystery. To kidnap a person like him, he was both. If I take a look at Haymanut Kassau, not a problem. Haymanut Kassau would never go with anyone she doesn't know, always stick to somebody she knows. If she goes with an infiltrator, namely either somebody she knew, somebody either from the distant family, not saying near family, or mind-controlled family can also be if there's dissociation. But she would never stray from her parents, which means that if she would try to escape, she wouldn't know what to do with herself. She never practiced the right to roam. And this is not the case for Arad. And we see that indeed he was captured and he escaped his captives. It was extremely intuitive. To capture this man, they would need to have tremendous dark occult rituals and to keep trying to hack his nervous system, and which is the prolonged ritual abuse that can go back to the oil extortion cults. Um, and so Neptune Scorpio, the way that the intelligence worked prevents accuracy. Okay? Because they try to take control on reality. And they want that the people will that with the psychic powers will operate for them, but psychic powers operate accurately only in terms and conditions of unconditional love, which doesn't work with rape and slavery. And this is also why the intelligence doesn't currently find him. To appease Neptune, we have to tune to frequency of unconditional love, and we have to make space for the retrieval of the missing. For example, they retrieved the kidnapped people in Israel, which is a good thing, and a lot of them and a lot of PTSD people um, go find themselves involved in criminal activity. Um, and all the things that he was surrounded by are the creme de la creme of ritual abuse and extortion cults. And until we don't address that, we will not be able to fully retrieve or prevent such case from occurring. And this needs to be said. The desire to find him is based on big pride regarding something that genuinely and authentically everything and everyone that participated in those weird rituals and his mind control things, of course, they were not choosing to do that, but it created an environment that got him to go missing, and albeit his best abilities, not be found. And everything and everyone around that would be in those rituals, things that helped. And look at when do I tend to this, after I talked about the Zumbur things, after I talked about the ritual abuse, after the Epstein list exposed, after so many things, only then I tend to this case. Because this case is all those things together. To actually prevent another case for like Ron Arad, can't go with the same rape and slavery mindset and extortion cults and ritual abuse. And for a lot of people, it's dissociated from that. And a lot of people go with the Me Too went too far. How'd you gonna find a person that to begin with would never be lost if not for rape or torture? Like seriously, what's gonna happen? They're gonna find him. Let's say he's alive. Let's say he's alive. Gonna find him. What are you gonna do together? Friends with the unit. Go back to Thailand. Rape 13 years old girls. Tomorrow another aviator gone because of the same conditions. They could hack his system. A child from Thailand could hack his nervous system. That kept him, and that guy was rebellious. It's not the profile person of a person that goes missing. Not a, and I definitely believe the scenario where he went missing and escaped is because look at this Uranus soul, Sun in Taurus, Venus in Pisces, Venus ruling also this Jupiter, Mars, Neptune, Scorpio, Mars ruling over Neptune, Scorpio, and Rahu. In formal out, next to formal out, Rahu 0 degrees Scorpio, Saturn Mula Nakshatra. That's a person where if he would get a calling to go somewhere, his intuition would be clear as day as to the underneath of the ocean. And Sun ruling over Pluto Regulus. So you could be really confident in his asserting himself, and could have very accurate divination, which means if he was captured, it's probably due to a shit ton of mind control, which means a shit ton of ritual abuse, and even then, he escaped. The only thing that would keep him there The same thing Annika Lucas is talking about. Jupiter Spica. Jupiter was on around Spica when there was the Me Too. It was on the Senate of Israel when I wrote Lemonade. What did I write about? I did not know the sign was the IDF. What did I write about? The training of the people for a democracy, for economy, for juristic system, for military, for intelligence. Finding Ron Arad cannot be done with this egoic pride. Or they're gonna show a bone of some dead person, there's a shit ton of dead people now around the area, and say this is Ron Arad. It's a DNA test. Okay, they can fake a document. They can DNA. And by the way, in the previous episode, I defined that there can be such a question, particularly now with Saturn, Neptune in Aries. Is it the original bone or teeth? Is it like, um, and even if he is alive, then is it the original? It is a mask. It is, those things can definitely be um, with that. And now, also negotiating for his return by slave trade and trafficking is, which is probably what they're trying to do. Now, as I predicted in my previous episode, which I see went missing, it is impossible. It's getting more and more impossible to find people, particularly as the coming 15 years, where Neptune will slowly progress to Andromeda. To find missing people, we would have to address the entire reason of why they went missing. Why the people get kidnapped? And it's all the things that I speak about in other episodes. And it's gonna get more and more difficult. It's gonna get more and more difficult to actually find the missing people. Or alternatively, we're gonna tend more and more to the topic and solve things, and then we can retrieve even missing people that we didn't think. We can miraculously retrieve people that were kidnapped and we didn't even know, like unregistered births and stuff like that. Um, Now, why did they want people like him gone? Because he can see, he can divine. Even there was a company, aviation company, Amsalem, something like that. Not aviation, a travel company or something like that. And he was staying at their hotel when they were a young company, and he predicted the development of their business, which with Mars from aloft he can do, and Neptune he can do, and he was correct. They did grow the business. He could predict the growth of businesses, particularly with Jupiter Spica. It's also trade and jurisdiction. This guy not missing could predict the war with Iran, the many things Israel would be accused of. Probably could even predict the Me Too. Mars rules genitals and the occultistic use of those things. Um, so this is, and also Venus ruling his Jupiter, 29 degrees Pisces. This is person that his these qualities of divination, so many things. I don't have ascendant midheaven, so I don't know where his lot of divination would be. But this person has so many qualities of navigating, divinating, lunar clear, lunar, the lunar extrasensory. Lilith, unfortunately, Mars rules Lilith in Aries, which um, can mean all the things that I said. And it is known, and this the family should know, that when they do these things, they look at bloodline and lineage. And I'm not exposing anything because it means they already looked at the family, whether his children, grandchildren. These things go by lineage. So family should be really cautious who they associate with. If those people are kind of Epstein affiliated, okay, I'm not talking about the family, but people around the family. And unfortunately, around such case, there would be all the who's and who's would want to be at the doorway, and everybody would want to be the person that brings either Ron Arad or brings closure to the case and kind of have it pinnacle of the pride of the nation. But the reason he was kidnapped is not exactly the pride of the nation. It's what could get Israel completely out of the map. And it's no people like consultation people or that are able to fully support without being mind controlled and try to cause that to the family people, because they want these divination qualities, and such qualities they usually run in the family, and they know it. Yes, I'm not saying nothing new, um, which is reason enough for me to publish this episode. Neptune is again in Mars sign. Um, yeah, they probably want to have some sort of a deal. The deal is way more global than it seems, and involving monarchy or Regulus Regulian figures of hidden power, even hidden monarchy. The 35, not the 33s. Um, Chiron Saturn Jupiter combination could be that he was perceived as someone who was sold, which can denote the person going missing and a deal regarding the return. Okay, that's basically, but there's no such thing without slavery mindset and thinking. It's basically the business that was involved with that saw him as slave that can be traded. And it can be for his psychic abilities now. Let's try to take a look at the lunar mansion. I believe this would be 19th lunar mansion. Let's see. I don't know why 1995 came up again. I would need to check 1995 again. Oh, 2005. Wait a second. 2005. Respect. 2005, there was a report of the intelligence that appreciated that Arad was no longer alive in Lebanon between 1995 and 1997. Then it brings the question, what was he doing since 1988 to 1995? You talked about a skin disease. Well, Chiron Saturn can denote that, but they said that they moved him to Iran and held him. Favor 1995. Okay, this was an Iranian person. Manusha Mukbar said to LA Radio that Ronarad is alive and imprisoned in the Iranian intelligence in Isfahan. That was the question, is it in Isfahan or Lebanon? Definitely. Okay, let's take a look at the chart. Then again, they said it's not. It's exactly what I'm saying. To get him alive, we need to have, first of all, zero rape, zero slavery, zero extortion cults. Why? Because they keep trying to control. But it's true. They keep trying to control. And what they keep trying to control, then they keep trying to control the information around him. And only with true cohesion we can have correct information. If I look at the chart, okay, I would need to look more at the dates and the transits for these dates. Would need a deeper um, inspection into various charts. And let's take a look at the lunar mansion, because the lunar mansion, and I would not do horary chart yet, but let's also take a look at the lunar mansion. Okay, so this is if the moon is before 4 degrees Sagittarius, it would be 19 lunar mansion. Win-win scenarios, which is compatible with this Jupiter. If this is the lunar mansion, with him, with his Jupiter, ruling Mars, ruling Ra and Neptune, fairness has to be. Jupiter is in Spica. Jupiter was in Spica, but it was the Me Too. Fairness has to be. Truth and justice has to be. And it can't be used as a power pride. And to find him is to unveil all operations to what will happen in the world around Iran, Israel, and Lebanon. But everything. The Templars, the rituals, the extortion cults, the MK this, MK that, everything. That's what it means to find him. Okay? I can continue trying to look into that, but it will unveil all of that. Okay? I'm just saying. Al Shaula, sting of Scorpius, which is turned towards. Now, if the motivation of to find him is to have this peak event, it's not going to work. It's not that we won't find him, but the peak event will expose something. If the motivation to find him is to find him, it means unraveling from all dumbfuckery that was done along the years. There was a lot of dumbfuckery. It's on the railway from Europe to China, so we're probably also talking Rolodex. Wow. Being involved in some sort of a way. Now, good for besieging towns and encampments, for disputing against enemies, for making a journey, for sowing and planting trees, bad for entrusting something to somebody. So basically, besieging towns and encampments would give us the kidnapping. If a man married, okay, I don't care if spouse is married or not, if it's pristine or not. Bad for voyages which will end in shipwreck. For partnerships, I don't. In that case, the guy went missing. That's terrible for the relationship. The trauma laughs. For selling slaves, bad for selling slaves, which means that to try to sell him, which is what I said, he can't be traded. He can't be traded. And very, very bad for captive. Indeed, it was very bad for him. It tells me that it's probably the lunar mansion. By the way, another person that has, I have to check this, I'm sorry. I'm not going to delineate. I see the name Annika Lucas definitely comes up on my mind. I'm not going to delineate to the moon because she's not standing in front of me and giving me permission. But hey, there's there's the guy that says we make the rules so we don't need permission. And so Deming Joris, natal chart. Natal chart. This might also, not to prove a point, but to check something because it might show me. Joris Deming, come on. Deming. Because I wrote the yeah. Oh, I need to manually of course, it's only me looking at this. For all the years that December 11, 1947. This is important. And hey, this guy might know something. Current planets. I already addressed the fact that if Joris Deming was indeed molesting children, the molestation tendencies would be developed under torture, without ability to release someone, and without ability to die, which would juristically protect Joris Deming from a lot of things if we find out that he's indeed, and I'm going to look at, don't I have Joris Deming chart in here? No, I'm not going. Okay. No, I think I have his chart in here. Why am I saying protect him? Because what would take to cure from captivity would be to actually no longer keep the curation for these things that created Joris Deming, Mark the Troll, hidden from the people, because as people come to be curated from captivity, where they were raped, where they were tortured, where they were not being able to be out, and where they were not being able to die, they have the same symptoms as a person like a Mark the Troll or Joris Deming. And so, and also, by the way, Melissa and the girls that were saved, but also need to curate from that, and not to develop, not to have sadistic tendencies that were developed by torture in their sexuality, so that they can clear the sexual energy, the life energy, the well-being, also the abundance. Yes, logged on database. No, the mink. Okay, then I will add. Joris the mink. 11. December 11, 1947. December 11, 1947. This curation is something I have been fighting for. I was targeted when I was in academia, because I said that these people that they do this, they need to have to self-regulate their mind, because they need control, but they need to self-regulate their mind. They need to be able to have a sense of self retrieved for the control over their own minds. Yeah, not now. And to be able to navigate, it was also before the ingress of Chiron to Aries, because these people would need to be able to navigate their healing of the mind and nervous system by themselves, so that they heal themselves. And I said that there was the case with the dean back then, and then I was it was triggered because people thought about MK Ultra, where but MK Ultra was not done by the person. Wait a second, Lauren, North Holland. Yes, I don't have time. Not now. Recording cannot. Okay. Okay, for this moon could be either this nakshatra or other nakshatra. Let's take a look at the other nakshatra, which could also be relevant for Ron Arad. Lunar mention 20. Al-Nam or the hunter. Ah, the mink is like more like hunter. Set intention to strive to seek them. Seek answers to questions. Perform tasks that require concentration. Yes, it's very much like with this energy. Ostriches. return from watering. Good for buying animals. Rain will be good, do no harm. Indifferent for journeys. Bad for captivity. Yes. Both are bad for captivity. And but I think the mink is more about hunting. You know what? Also, also Arad could have, if Arad has this mentioned, but also he could, it could also be his Mars, and the moon is usually connected with the other planets. There's usually an overall theme in the chart, because he had this very strong focus. It was in aviation, which is very compatible with the profession, like the mink, which was head of juristic Supreme Court, and um, both lunar mentions are bad for captives, bad for and both are relevant for hunting because combat aviation is about hunting targets. And they said the friends of Ron Arad said that he would in the Air Force, when they would have a partner for conversation, they would call it to lock in on someone or lock in on. Okay, and like I said, not so compatible for relationships. But of course, relationship is holistically addressed. But this is could be that lunar mention, which is good for hunt, but bad for captives. Strengthens prisons, destroys allies' wealth, compels a man to come to certain place hunting, compels a man to come to a certain place hunting. Okay, yeah. Half man, half. But this is the thing: the man is good hunter, but if he's captive, it's very bad for him. Um, taming wild beasts, strengthening prisons. Moon here, not favorable for marriage, but yes for building and asking favors. Favorable for taming aggressive elements. This shows me that, for example, um, relevant for both Ron Arad and Joris the Mink in different contexts. If they would grow Joris the Mink not with ritual abuse, he could tame his own aggression and other people's aggression. Hunting and construction, but with ritual abuse, it would make him hunt people, not necessarily for any reason. Okay, because that was their point. במקרר. לא. אוקיי, I don't know, not by me. מאמה, לא לקחתי איתי חלב, אוקיי. Use mentioned to lay first brick in foundation. Unfavorable for community wealth. Pentacles against illness. Charms of enmity. We must rein in unruly passions if they are anger, impulsive, unbridled actions, or pursuit of sensual fulfillment. But it does allow the ability to do so. Unless a person goes through ritual abuse. The mention signals success in the questions, following a quest or reaching a goal. If you have been hunting for something, the time is auspicious for finding it. We must not be passive. Again, these lunar nakshatras, bad for captives, great hunters. For the case of Ron Arad, he was combat navigator, which would necessitate him at least knowing how to fly a plane in case of emergency, very likely. And it's a combat plane, so the Mars in Pisces gives us the focus, the power of focus, and Mars gives us the telos to the focus. The moon strengthens that ability. Again, a person very focused and could be compelled to go somewhere. So to make him to mix his hunting instinct would be very difficult even in captivity. Which is why I believe he could have escaped. But it says very bad for captives. And let's take a look at the chart. Bless you. By the way, the moon is auspicious right now for knowing everything. And here's chart for Arad. I don't have ascendant midheaven, which would tell me the houses. Neptune Rahu could tell me that he could travel far. Or he could go missing far away. And where there's oil, at the bottom of the ocean. And well water. There can even be something underneath the bottom of the ocean. Of course, it's oil also, but also something. Um, um, I do not outrule something like a submarine. Both Venus is vehicle. Jupiter rules aviation, but it can be something submerged and again can be or bunker, which can also be okay, something enclosed that is underwater. Mars separating from opposition to Pluto. There are a lot of financial concerns, a lot of power issues around this thing. Let's take a look at chart for Lebanon and chart for Iran, which would be more the location. It was something to do with Israel. Other than the fact that he was Muslim from Israel, but wait a second. This reception between Jupiter and Venus. Jupiter is around the descendant of Israel. Let me see. Well, Pisces, Virgo is Israel, Palestine. Scorpio, Taurus, of course, in Israel. Scorpio would be second house. Um, Israel should check its um, philosophical or religious orders. Um, and academic structures. Jupiter is academia. Saturn is kind of like a advanced degree, which I guess is why I got the calling to look at it, because I come from academia and I rebelled the those orders. um, but amongst the orders in academic, religious, orthodox, or secular orders like Templars, or I'm sorry, satanic beliefs, because Saturn can mean Satan. Saturn can literally mean satanic. Um, some of them are holding Ron Arad. Um, and it can be even around where somebody that is a Venus for him, that's with the Ketu, that they may have either somebody in those orders or somebody that has a teacher or a healer or a intelligence jurisdiction, because for me also Joris Deming came when I tried to look at this. And I also offered like what can actually be a way to release from that captivity. Um, because all of this, the Saturn that's ruling